Hi, everyone. Welcome to our Go Live series of the Follow Our Journey through the Radical Remission Coach Training. Can you believe this is our 10th week in a row of going live and that our Radical Remission Coach Training ends next week?
I cannot believe it. It went extremely fast.
I agree. I can't believe how fast this journey flew, and it's been a beautifully enriching, transformative experience. Getting to know radical remission coaches and survivors and learning from Dr. Turner, and just getting more immersed in this work. So today, Cheryl and I, we're going to discuss how to make the most out of each coaching session as a coach. And this is all in the context of radical remission and holistic health and wellness coaching. And the reason why we wanted to focus on this topic today, especially as we are coming to an end of our radical remission coach training, is to just share and discuss things we can do as coaches to really enhance our sessions for our clients, to give them the best that we can. And this is, again, in the context of being a radical remission and health and wellness holistic coach.
Yeah, I agree that through this professional development that we're doing, we're benefiting both ourselves and our clients. And having not only gone through coaching training through the wisdom of the whole, but now also radical remission training, in addition to all of the other trainings that we have done. I actually just completed my laughter yoga certification this past weekend to help increase positive emotions with my clients. But these professional development things that we are doing are so important to gain skills to help optimize our sessions for our clients. So, how do we as coaches continue to optimize our sessions for our clients? So, that's one way. Another way, like if you take a more broad, holistic approach, I think another thing that comes up for me is having a mentor and practicing coaching. So, you go through this coaching program, it's however long. And then when you complete it, you're not automatically perfect. You're not automatically the most perfect coach now, right? We continuously have to develop our coaching skills and continue to get feedback on our skills. So a way to continue this a way to do this is by continuing to coach with your peers, practice coaching, and also working with a mentor. So Jessica and I host coaching practicums where we get together a group of coaches and we practice together and give constructive feedback. And I have a mentor. Actually, Jessica has the same mentor that we have used for our coaching skills, Susan Ezra, who's absolutely amazing. So little shout out to her. So now with this practice, we feel confident in our skills. So when we show up for our coaching sessions, we feel prepared and then we are able to optimize our sessions.
What hits home about what you're saying is the experiential nature of coaching and these types of interactions. And that's my favorite part because there's no textbook answer, right? It's all about the human experience. And that's really what I love about medicine as well. The most enriching part about medicine was the human interaction, just this beautiful richness in it. And it's an art and a science, and it's something that's learned through experience and by being around people who have done it, right? And so I just, in terms of professional development and reiterating the fact that this is about the client, since this is all client driven, it's sometimes not so obvious what a coach does, but that's a sign, I think, of a good coach. They're going and they're showing up, and basically, we're facilitating this space for inner discovery, for exploration, really for the client to lead. But the ways in which we are able to do that, we can only give what we know, right? So the tools that we share, the techniques that we use, that's why the professional development is so important. And in terms of navigating situations that comes up, that's where mentoring comes in as well. And so basically, there are so many different nuances on how we can do this as coaches. No two coaches are going to practice exactly the same way. And you had mentioned, starting with that holistic approach for me is presence. So when I show up, I really have to, this is my everyday routine now, just to get grounded and present in my own life. But with coaching, especially to show up to ground myself, my morning routine, I'm grateful to have faith, prayers, gratitude, and to bring this into work all throughout the day. Practically speaking, when I do work with anybody, especially coaching clients, I like to schedule a buffer, not ideally schedule clients back to back, because it's really important to have time for me to have time to digest and to process what's going on and to make sure that I am aware of what's happened within myself and I can enter into each session with full presence. And so, with that, yes, it is extremely important. We had talked about structure last time to start and stop on time, but within that, having a buffer for myself as a coach to be able to show up with that deep space of listening and to really be there for the client.
Yeah, what comes up for me when you talk about presence is walking the talk. So we hear this a lot, I think, going through the coaching program and things like that. You want to walk the talk as a coach. And I think it's another
Mhm.
holistic way to optimize your coaching session is the way you're showing up for your coaching sessions, right? So you had mentioned presence and grounding before every session. I also like to take a couple minutes right before the session and picture the person I'm about to work with and their goals and kind of love them up in my mind a little bit before we get started. I feel like it's a great way for me. I'm excited when they come on the screen or when they, walk into the office. It's a good way for me to get started. So also walking the talk during our sessions, like what does that look like exactly? So showing up without distractions, my phone's not going off during coaching sessions because I don't want their phone to go off. I try and put myself in an environment in which I can um, be completely present, like you had mentioned. Um, and it's also the little things like I want to believe in my client just like I want my client to believe in themselves. And I also then have to believe in myself just as I would want the client to be able to believe in their selves. So everything you want from
Mhm.
them, I feel like you kind of have to show yourself. You have to do yourself. And I can't be a coach and talk to you about exercise and having a healthy diet when I'm eating fast food and sitting on the couch all day. Like it just wouldn't be aligned.
Oh, you bring up so much. I really, really, really appreciate the alignment because, for years, just in becoming a healthcare professional, going through medical school and becoming a physician, I feel like that was something that came from inside almost every day, multiple times a day, was and it's not just in medicine. I feel like it's in so many, it's just in life. And this is a universal topic that comes up for many is how do you meet the demands of modern life, fulfill professional expectations, and do everything you need to do to succeed, especially in like a professional worldly matter, um, in a way that you can still keep positive, keep health, and keep giving health to others. And I felt like, how could I do this for patients, especially when I couldn't even do it for myself? And that was a really, really challenging part for me, to be quite honest, just trying to go through everything that it takes to become a physician. And so I'm really grateful to be in this space now where I can live with integrity and like how I'm showing up and find a way to have that alignment with core values and belief in life. And as a coach, it's extremely important to have that alignment and integrity in how we're showing up. And also to be aware what's coming up for us, right? As we go through a coaching session, as you're listening and there for your client. So, for instance, your client might have some very real and very serious concerns that come up during their sessions, right? Especially if you're doing health and wellness and radical remission coaching. They might very realistically and reasonably have a fear of dying. They might have had a death of a loved one or some trauma or something that really does take a lot of presence to work through. And it's so important as a coach, as you help your client through these, to guiding their own way, as it's not medical advice or therapy, but even just providing that coaching space, it's extremely important to acknowledge what was said, what's coming up for you. And sometimes in session, so practically, I would like to ask for a pause, just a pause to just acknowledge what was said. And I feel like this is a way of honoring the client and also honoring just having self compassion, right? Being able to process what was just said. And if something comes up emotionally or energetically, just being very, very aware of. So having that self awareness and that emotional awareness. And then on top of it, as a coach, it's extremely important to figure out, how do we nourish ourselves? And even though there's an energy exchange in a coaching session, how do we keep it in a way where we are able to be there without having, I guess, without being depleted in any way? So many people, for instance, know this love and kindness meditation. It's one of my favorite meditations, and it's beautiful because you fill yourself up with love and kindness, and give it to others in a way where you are constantly regenerated, and your energy doesn't go from you. And so that's how I like to look at coaching, and it's extremely important part of coaching practice to figure out how we do that for ourselves. And for each and every one of us, that answer is going to be different.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And I wanted to thank you for sharing that story, as an MD, and how that felt for you. I would say that I had a very similar experience as a nurse, and coaching has been a gift in a way in which I do feel I'm more able to care for myself so that I can show up better for others. And I just wanted to talk about that. Just say one more thing about walking the talk, is that we're not going to be perfect as coaches either. So just acknowledging that, like, we don't have to be perfect so that the other person, we're giving that respect for the other person. I think we just have to be very compassionate with ourselves. Sure, I might sit on the couch some days, and that's okay as well. So having that compassion, and the awareness, again, comes up in, I feel like, almost every single thing that we talk about. So you had touched on this too, the buffer. After every session, I need to debrief. I need to think about what just happened. Like you mentioned, it can be very heavy material that you're working on in these coaching sessions. So having that time to debrief, so you're not only preparing for the next session, but you're also debriefing from the last session. So that buffer time is extremely important. It allows me to re-energize, reground, reconnect with myself. But as a coach, another thing that it allows me to do is reflect with self-compassion. Was there anything I could have done differently in that session? And is there anything I need to do to follow up with this client? How do I feel that session ended? How am I going to remember to follow up with that client? Do I need to find resources, write an email? Really setting up time to do those things. So I'm preparing myself efficiently to support my client, and also allowing myself to take care of myself and honoring my time.
I love those tips, especially the practical tips that you're sharing. And that's so important because I find that these practical techniques, these nuances that we get to learn and share and develop, that's really what helps make this coaching process more tangible for our clients. So when we as coaches coach coaches, it's a gift because they realize the value of the process and having that space. And if you work with somebody who's new to coaching, often it's like, what am I getting out of this? And just having the expectations be clear that what you are getting out of this is from you, right? It's your goals, your whatever direction is, whatever you want to work on. But still, it's important to have very real, I don't want to say outcomes because we're not focused on outcomes, very real points, I guess, very real points where the client can look at and be like, wow, this is the journey that I've come. So, like milestones, things they can see. So, for instance, after each session, having their takeaways, writing your takeaways and keeping track of it. I do love to keep an assessment in a place where we can both access it and come back to and just see, is this still where the journey is going? Have you met the goals you started to meet? So, figuring out a way to make this process, this beautiful process of inner work, into something that, yes, is a process of inner work, but something they can also really experience in their life is having a huge impact. Because that's what we want, right? That's ultimately what we want for our clients.
I agree. And I would add that it also helps the client build self-confidence when you're doing that, when they can physically see the data points in which they have made the progress that they have made. They build that self-confidence, and then they're more likely to continue to make that progress. So that's a really great point. And I think we touched on a lot of great points. only thing I have left to add is not leading or being the expert. You're not benefiting your client by leading with your own agenda. Just keeping in the front of your mind that the client is the expert on themselves. And the client is the one that should be leading the session. Sometimes this can be very hard, especially it was for me. And I think it's coming from being a healthcare provider or a registered nurse. My whole job was to fix problems. Everybody just wanted me to fix all of their problems for them. And even as a caregiver before becoming a nurse, it felt the same way. So to step back from that now and not try to fix anybody's problems, but allow them the space in which they can solve their own problems, that was difficult for me at first. And it was once that finally clicked for me that my clients were like, the sessions just seemed so much more efficient, and the clients were having way more aha moments. So it was very humbling for me to learn. And so that's another thing I just continue to remember: the clients know best.
I love that. I can't tell you how many times I've always wanted to say, like, have you tried this? Or do you know this? And sometimes in coaching sessions, I feel like I have two sides, like on either side of my ear. Like one is an angel, and the other is a devil. No, I don't want to say devil. The other one is like a yapping puppy, kind of like just barking and saying, like, you know this, like that energy, cute energy, wanting to go and just very excited. And this is like an internal space where it happens. I come to this space of listening and this space of silence because each and every time, just like what you said, Cheryl, I am so humbled by what the client comes up with. And their answer is the only answer that matters. And so each and every time, it's even something like diet or exercise or something that might be health and wellness related. The answer usually is something different than that, like having to do with social support or working through an emotion or something that only the client knows. And even in all of our best interest, how could we get there? So I think that's a beautiful place to the last thing you said, that was the last thing you wanted to add, that is a very, very good point to add. And that just everyone has this innate intelligence, right? Intelligence. It's just the only thing with that is sometimes in a coaching session. So we talked about health and wellness coaching and how everyone has different skills. So it's completely okay to ask your coach to serve as a consultant. They can put on a consultant hat or a coaching hat. And sometimes during a session, I will ask the client for permission to share. But through practice, I have just become very mindful to ask permission and to allow the client to facilitate, not facilitate the space for the client and really focus on them rather than anything that's coming up for me. And sorry, lastly, just being very, very clear. So if someone does ask me for any consulting, like what my expertise is, because it's not serving as a healthcare provider or as therapy in any which way, it is just as coaching and sharing educational information.
Wonderful. Yeah. So to summarize the things that we talked about today: walking the talk and being present with your client, having a mentor and practicing your coaching skills, continuing your professional development, not leading or coming from your own agenda, honoring this process for you also as a coach and being compassionate with yourself, and having that emotional and self-awareness and alignment within you. So we would love to hear from you. Please let us know what you do to optimize your sessions for your clients.
Thank you so much. And so we're closing that. With that, it ends our session for today. And next week is our last week of this Radical Remission Coach training. And so join us. We're excited to wrap up and share how we're going to continue this work, including the excitement that soon we will be able to offer Radical Remission Coach training and workshops and bring this work out into the community. And we are also excited to continue our social media journey in this Radical Remission work by getting to know other coaches that we met along the way and having them share their work and their stories too. So we are so excited for what's to come and for what is, and for this opportunity to share this with you.
Yes. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.